I have my doubts about Tim Tebow's NFL future. I'd be the first to admit. Rex Ryan misled Tim Tebow, then he misused him, he underused him, and I think he badly and maybe inadvertently damaged his NFL future. Because the one thing I did take away from the Jets experience was Tim Tebow cannot be your basic backup quarterback, because there is nothing basic about Tim Tebow and his situation. He was, for a while, an extremely successful starting quarterback. So he's going to put way too much pressure on your starting quarterback as the backup. He's going to put way too much media pressure on your head coach and your offensive coordinator to play him. And in the big picture, the media is going to pay way too much attention to your backup quarterback, Tim Tebow. So I'm going to throw this out. There's only one landing place that I can see for Tim Tebow, and that would be the New England Patriots. Ryan Mallett is now the backup at about 6 feet 7 inches tall. I'm not a Ryan Mallett fan. I watched him a lot at Arkansas. For my money, if I had to bet on Tim Tebow or Ryan Mallett winning a football game, my money heavily would be on Tim Tebow. Bill Belichick was interested in drafting Tebow, and obviously the current offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots did draft Tim Tebow in Denver. So I'm suggesting that I hope that Bill Belichick would see his way clear to take a shot with Tim Tebow.
I don't see it happening. Tim Tebow is toxic right now. A lot has to do with what happened with the Jets and the fact that he does bring, as you said, so much pressure to anybody. And considering his unique style of play, you can't. He would have to go somewhere ultimately where they could run an offense that would play to his strengths. There's no team that really runs the kind of offense that would play to his strengths, and you're certainly not going to install it for a backup quarterback. So if you're a team, you're asking yourself, what is the upside of bringing him here? It's going to be a lot of media people. You're going to be pestered with questions about whether or not he should be starting. You're going to add some unnecessary drama for your starting quarterback. And Tim Tebow himself wants to start. So he's not going to take a minimized role. So I feel like his career is at an impasse. He doesn't want to be a punt protector. He doesn't want to be a gimmick quarterback. No. He wants to be a starting quarterback. An organization doesn't want all that drama. So to me, I think he's got a foot and a half out of the NFL.
Stephen A., will any team take a chance on Tim Tebow?
No, and they shouldn't. They shouldn't even waste their time. Here's the reality of the situation, okay? Tim Tebow, now I can go into the fact that I still don't think he can throw the football, but I won't. I'll be nice this morning. Instead, I'll say that clearly the Jets, not necessarily just Rex Ryan, the New York Jets essentially sabotaged this kid's career because he was so flagrantly misused that it just begged questions as to why that was. It begged questions as to why Rex Ryan was so resolute in his commitment to not playing this guy, even to the point of naming him your backup quarterback, keeping him in that position all year, and then going with Greg McElroy to start a game after Mark Sanchez was benched, and you still didn't put Tim Tebow in. What did that prompt? That prompted Tim Tebow to go to Rex Ryan and those guys and say, I don't want to be used in the gimmick offensive schemes that you've got me in. Don't utilize me like you've been utilizing me all season. I'm done with that. That made Tim Tebow look bad. I applaud him for standing up because I agree with his position. But it still ultimately made him look bad because it reminded everybody he doesn't believe he's a backup quarterback. He believes he should be playing. He probably believes he should be starting. And he's not realizing what Skip refuses to realize. And that is more than his football. Because he's basically a marginal talent, they're asking themselves, is he worth it with the attention he brings to a franchise? Is the circus kind of atmosphere that is always imminent whenever he shows up, is it worth it for the coach? Is it worth it for the coordinators? Is it worth it for the organization? Is it worth it for the players? And Skip, I told you before, you had the best of intentions. You love this kid in terms of a player and what he stands for, and I applaud you for that. And you were the first to bring up that he could play. You were the first to bring up that he deserved to start. He started a game. He went 7-4 as a starter. He won a playoff game. You absolutely called it. So you were not wrong. Your intent was honorable, but the attention you helped bring to this kid has a lot to do with what NFL teams are avoiding, because unlike you, Skip, they watch him in practice and they're like, oh no, we're not giving him a chance. And they don't want the attention that comes their way because of what they're seeing. You're saying all he does is win games. Let him play. They're saying, no, you got to practice too, because we have to feel comfortable because our jobs are on the line, and they're not willing to do it. So that attention has cost him. He's better off in the CFL.
But Stephen A., though, I will say this. You say that like we should feel sorry for Tim Tebow. I don't feel sorry for him because he wanted this platform. He wanted to be in New York. And he wanted this kind of attention. So if he didn't handle his business and didn't become the practice player, if you know that your audition is in practice and you're a professional athlete,
Jamel,
that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get better and improve in those areas. And if he didn't do that's his fault.
Let me answer that. Let me answer your point. Here's where you're wrong about that, Jamel. He wanted the attention of New York. That's true. But I totally agree with Skip from the standpoint that he was brought to New York with the belief that he would be giving a viable opportunity to start at some point for the New York Jets. Considering how awful Mark Sanchez was, considering how awful Tony Sparano was, considering that they gave him that opportunity and it wasn't predicated on practice, it was predicated on what he did as a starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Even though I agree with you in terms of his limitations, there is no question that Tim Tebow received the raw deal and he was screwed over by the New York Jets. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that.
And Jamel, from afar, Champ Bailey of the Denver Broncos laughed at the Jets for underrating how great Tebow could be if you gave him a shot in games, because he has never been a practice player back to his days at Florida, even in high school. And furthermore, I have to correct Jamel or take issue on one other point. 4 teams would not have to change their offense for Tim Tebow: Washington, Seattle, San Francisco, and Carolina. Now, am I saying Tim Tebow is better than those 4 young stud quarterbacks? I am not. Can he win games in that offense in the National Football League? I saw him do it. I saw 7 of the first 8. And I promise you, Tim Tebow last year could have won more games than about half the starting quarterbacks in the NFL if somebody is smart enough and gutsy enough to give him the shot.
But Skip, both of you guys are
asking. But you still have to practice.
But you're asking a coach to say, I see how he performs in games, but unlike everyone else who plays in the NFL, he gets to practice bad and play. That's not how the NFL works.
Okay, but every once in a while, a coach will tell you there's a kid who will come along who's just not a great practice player. But, man, when you turn the lights on, put the pads on, he can play.
But Skip,
Jamel is right. Jamel is right, Skip. You don't get Jamel is right, Skip. You don't get to ignore. You can't just ignore him being that awful in practice. You can't do that.
The Broncos did. It got him a playoff win.